episode 21 of The Witching Hour. I am Perri Nemiroff. That's Haleigh Fouch.
Hello.
I'm excited. Are you excited?
Of course.
We've had a very eventful day here. And really, no matter what goes down, whenever we come into this room and we get to talk Witching Hour content, it's like a big smile on my face, especially today, because today's a big deal. So today is the first best of the year list for The Witching Hour.
Oh, yay.
I feel like that's something to celebrate.
It's a big year.
Yeah.
Or big year. Hey, it has been a big year.
It's a big year.
But it's a big deal.
It's a big deal for a big year. And then next year will be a bigger deal for a bigger year.
Yes,
I don't know, maybe.
No, I'm confident.
So that's what we're going to do right now. We are going to share our top 5 horror movies of 2018. We each have our own list, and we're going to run through them one by one, from 5 all the way up to 1. I guess that's it. We should just jump into it. I feel like I need a bigger drum roll or something. But
I know. Can we get a drum kit in here? Do we have one? No.
Cody?
We don't.
No? Want to bang on the wall? I don't know if he's still in there. All right. Should I just jump into it with my 5?
Yeah, get in there.
My number 5 of 2018 was a little surprise for me, because I didn't know if this was the kind of movie that was going to be for me, because we actually were talking about this before we even started the podcast. Sometimes you see movies and you can identify them as great movies, but they just don't suit your taste. And that's what I thought was going to happen with this one. As much as I do like the Raid movies, I don't love them. I don't love them quite like many others out there do, but I was just completely bowled over by The Night Comes for Us. Yeah. I could not believe how long that movie just kept me so invested. And it's one of those situations where, because of the Raid movies, kind of, you think you've seen it all before. I've seen all that. I don't need even more action set pieces. But no, I did. And then even once I started watching The Night Comes for Us, I'm like, whoa, this is badass. But, how are you going to keep this up for 2+ hours? And they do. Every single fight sequence is so beautifully orchestrated, so brutal, and just so creative. The whole thing kept me on my toes from start to finish. And I would say, even though the story isn't deep from an exposition standpoint, where, let's say, it's dialogue that's said or it's explicitly written out in a script or something, there's something about how the characters build through the action that does make that kind of development and, added layers to these characters almost inherent in the fight sequences, which I thought was a really cool touch. But yeah, that movie really, really just surprised me with how hard I fell for it.
It surprises me too. I definitely I had a really good grasp on some of your picks this year, but that one I did not see coming. And I think part of it is honestly, and not saying that I'm right or you're wrong in any capacity, when I watched it, I did not perceive it as a horror movie at all. It's an action film to me.
Finger chopping. Come on.
Sure, lots of blood. But there are lots of bloody action movies.
That's true. That's true. That's the beauty of the genre, though.
That's absolutely
you don't have to necessarily box it into just horror. And that's actually, looking at this list, that's the beauty of this whole year. Certain things are, I guess what you would call traditional horror movies, or let's say a slasher movie, something like that. And then other ones they're almost enhanced by bleeding into other genres.
I agree, and I'm always anti-label. I think it's silly how often people want to say, that's not horror. And it's like, well, to you maybe, but who are you to say?
I was just having a conversation during a junket interview about the nature of villains and being cast as a villain, and this individual kept telling me that one of the things everyone should try to do with villains is try to understand rather than label. And I feel like if you have a villain that you can understand versus someone who's just walking around with the big villain label slapped on them, that makes a much more rich character there.
Definitely. And like you said, I think that often the genre is strengthened by bleeding into other genres. But yeah, so that one took me by quite a surprise how often we've talked about it on this podcast, because truly when I saw it at Fantastic Fest, I was like, what a great action movie.
I can't believe that it didn't hit you a little harder with that audience in particular, because sometimes when the first time you see a movie is with that kind of loud, wild crowd, and that movie seems to be made for it.
No. Everybody loved
crazy.
It. Yeah, it just wasn't perceived as a horror film there. It was an action movie.
Yeah.
But
that's
again,
the beauty of Fantastic Fest, too.
Yeah.
who blends one genre into the other better than Fantastic Fest.
Truly.
And they celebrate everything.
Very true. And that's the whole point, is we love all the genres. And I love that movie. love this for Timo. I think he's such an exciting talent that's up and coming, and I haven't disliked his films, but I've just been like, solid, not quite there yet.
Yeah, yeah.
This one was there.
This one was definitely there.
Yeah.
I mean, still with him, Safe Haven from VHS.
So good.
I don't think I'll ever be able to shake that particular short film. And still to this day, I think that might be my favorite short film I've ever seen.
Wow.
I was just completely floored by that whole thing. I almost like couldn't catch my breath by the end of it. But I also love VHS 2 overall. But that one tops every single segment in that movie and every other segment in an anthology film I've ever seen.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm still so excited about that. Now I'm excited about him and his work as a feature director for so many reasons.
I wonder how long it's going to take for him to really be, brought aboard some kind of bigger budget action film.
It's so tough to predict something like that because it's like, we'll sit here and we'll look at any small independent movie that is super cool and has really sky-high production value and say, oh, they're going to be the next to get snatched up by a big studio. But the other thing that I feel like sometimes I forget to consider is personal preference, what he wants to do.
Oh, of course.
It's like if he doesn't want to take, because there's so many great up-and-coming directors out there who just don't want to take that leap. And if that's their decision, I respect it. But I'll still root for them to get more projects.
Always. And it also, that, talk about personal preference, that movie's not going to be every executive's cup of tea or,
Depends what you're making, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, though, and I do like to fantasize about the cool things that the directors I like could do in the future,
Yeah, I don't blame you. Not one bit. Especially this year where there's so many new directors to focus on, too.
Yeah. I'd really like to see Timo take something that is what he tends to do best, which is like really, really violent action or bringing action to really, really violent horror. And get a little more money behind it. Maybe get set up with Sam Raimi's production company or something. Again, fantasizing. But
I like that. I like that fantasy there. I wonder how much a movie like The Night Comes For Us costs.
It's a great question.
Night Comes For Us.
Didn't
budget.
look cheap. Did not look cheap.
This is like hardcore research right now. I don't think I'm going to be able to find this super quickly. But no, it doesn't look cheap. So the fact that like saying what might a movie by him look like with a bigger budget, I wonder if that's, one, necessary and two, beneficial for someone like him because
very true.
I feel like some people might work better under certain constraints and certain pressures. And, obviously everybody wants every extra penny they could possibly get their hands on. But sometimes the requirement to be creative winds up giving you kind of like these nice surprises that you never would have found had you been able to use any bit of resources you wanted.
I totally agree with that. And I think a lot of filmmakers would back that sentiment across the board. It's just one of those things that I do like seeing what a filmmaker does when they bring their touch to a studio film. So like Denis Villeneuve, when he made Blade Runner, like, first of all, I still don't know how that happened. But that's a big budget studio movie, but it's a super Denis Villeneuve movie. And I like to watch that happen. Got a little sidetracked. But
we did a little. For a little reference, The Raid Redemption had a $1 million budget. I can't seem to find the one for The Night Comes For Us, but let's say it's 5 times that. It's a $5 million production budget.
Yeah.
That still seems like an itty-bitty amount when you actually look at what you get on screen.
I guess that's what's really cool when you have like physical talent like that. You don't need a big budget because they do the heavy lifting with their incredible feats.
It's nuts.
That's wild.
It's nuts.
$1 million.
I really can't believe they do that.
That's wild.
Do you want to jump into your number 5? Because I'm excited to talk about this movie now, too.
I'm excited, too, because I've talked about it a lot, but I this is the first time we get to talk about it really together.
Yeah.
Where you've seen it.
Yeah.
So, Revenge, which has slowly moved up and up and up and up for me over the year. Well, since last year. I saw it at Fantastic Fest last year. What a cool movie. What a beautifully shot movie. What a horrendously gruesome film.
Oh, yeah.
And an interesting opposite side of the action spectrum. Like, this is more of a guns and a survival type of action. It's not it is ass-kicking, but it's ass-kicking with a lot of blood and knife and guns.
I can't believe how much I love this.
Yeah.
But even more so, I can't believe how long it took me to see this movie.
Yeah.
What have I been doing all year?
I don't know. You've been watching awards movies.
I know, Rhea. Oh, I think about that so often. I keep saying to myself, why can't you keep up with all these movies? And then I think about all the shows I'm involved in and all the must-watches for each one.
Yeah.
Why can't there be just an extra couple of hours on every day or an extra day in the week, and we can just call that the worldwide national, like, entertainment watching day, and you can just chill and enjoy whatever you want to enjoy.
Take it to Congress.
But anyway, Revenge. If I had a number 6 spot on my list, Revenge would be in that spot. What a beautifully bloody simple idea with no frills whatsoever, but it really just like digs its claws in, and it's just got so much style too. It's like one of the shots that I can't get out of my head is, I mean, I guess light spoilers for Revenge if you haven't seen it, but you know when she runs out of the house and Richard follows, and you're with the other 2 guys in the foreground, and the camera just stays where it is as they run out through the back, and all 4 of them are running after each other
from behind, like the window pane.
Yeah,
it's a great shot.
What a badass, and the use of those window panes too.
Oh my gosh, so good,
beautiful,
so good, and what a challenge for the cinematographer, or an exciting challenge, you know.
How do you pronounce the director's name on this? Because I feel like I need to learn so I could properly say it, because I'm not going to be able to stop talking about her.
I don't think that I've heard it out loud. Coralie,
I
believe.
Coralie. I would have said Coralie.
Farge?
I
don't know. She's French.
French, yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of what we just touched on in our last conversation, directors to watch and excited to see what they do. She is someone that I think is going to wind up on a lot of lists right now, and I would not be surprised if some bigger companies are knocking on her door, because this movie is great for a lot of reasons. It is dripping in style, though. If any other director had their hands on this story, there is no way it would look just like this final product we got.
Well, so that's why I've come to love this movie so much over the years. Because I'll be honest, when I saw it at Fantastic Fest, I really liked it, but I was like, a little overhyped for me.
Okay.
Then it stuck with me. I watched it again when it came out on Shudder. I liked it a lot more. Also, maybe it's because it wasn't midnight, which does kind of have an influence at certain points.
Understandable.
I was like, man, it's late to be taking all this in. But it's a simple, very simple thing that we've seen. The plot, the rape revenge story, is a very simple thing that we've seen done for decades. And it's usually tasteless and crass and exploitative and eroticized. And this film really grew on me the more I paid attention to it and watched it, because obviously it doesn't do any of that. It's not eroticized at all, at least not the parts pertaining to the assault. She's allowed to be a sexual character who is very erotic in her own right, but it's not, it doesn't belong to the men when they assault her or when she's assaulted. So it's the way that the fact that she is allowed to be like pretty sexual before that happens, and it's not judged at all. And the way it sort of turns that traditional gaze against the audience eventually.
Well, that's like one of the most beautiful things here. It's like one of the examples of that I've stuck in my mind is the use of the binoculars, how they kind of use it at the beginning to ogle her, and then she uses them to get back at them. Ha!
Yeah, it's very much aware of the gaze and using it as a part of the horror.
Exactly.
And I love that.
And speaking of a movie with a ton of action where each individual sequence is just like 10 times more badass than the last.
Yes.
Every single... And this is why I think a movie like Revenge could become repeat viewing for me. It's because I'm always going to look forward to the next kill sequence, because they're so like colorful and wild and unique, and
each one has like 7 people's worth of blood in it, so it's great.
So much blood in this movie. So much blood and makeup effects. I would say, if I could say one thing actually about this movie that I don't know how much I liked, it was when, all right, we're talking about our best of the year here. There's going to be some spoilers. So one more spoiler for Revenge. Actually, this is a big spoiler, so I'll just say that. And now you have a break to tune out. Okay, so when she gets impaled.
Oh, sure.
And has to fix herself up. And it's You know, it felt like it was as close to realistic as a movie like this could get in terms of, you know, her suffering and not being able to carry on and everything. And then all of a sudden, she just, like, has a cool little tattoo there.
That's very fair.
Yeah. One thing got caught in my mind there.
Yeah. I think that was a bit of a hang-up for me the first time I watched it as well, and then I just didn't care as much the second time around.
I feel like once you're along for the ride, those kinds of things go out the window.
I was like, that's not how your insides work. And then I was like, I don't care.
It was also because they had that cool scene where she was still hallucinating, and she kept waking up with it, and I'm like, oh, she's going to keep waking up with it, and then all of a sudden it's going to be a gory mess again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
No, she's a phoenix reborn.
I know. And it did it embraced that vibe, which is why I think you can get away with something like that.
And did you, remember when we did the best kills episode and I was talking about the standoff in the car and the gun? How good was it?
So brilliant, because he is such like
so
a little
gross.
like a little gross weasel character, and to see him get what's coming to him is so him in particular. I think because it's not like she doesn't have any much direct involvement with the first guy.
Yeah.
Then it's little Weasley guy, and even Richard, because you kind of look at Richard like maybe he would help at the beginning, but then he sucks.
He's the worst.
But still, their big finish at the end is something else too.
I mean,
talk about blood.
Yeah.
Blood all over a beautiful, like predominantly white house.
I'm pretty sure they did a virgin sacrifice in there before they actually got to the house.
I have so many questions with how that was done too. So did they basically just get one shot to finish all the pretty house stuff, and then they just splatter it with blood and hope they don't have to reshoot anything?
I mean, I guess.
Oh my, that looks like quite the mess to clean up.
I'm so glad that we finally got to talk this one out.
I can't get over how long it took me to watch that movie. I am slightly embarrassed by it, but I caught up eventually.
It does happen, and especially, unfortunately, because I really love Shudder, I think that often Shudder things tend to be like, I'll get there. I had to watch like 4 last week because I was writing my movies you may have missed list, and I was like, well, shit, I missed a ton too.
I don't want to admit how many movies on that list I haven't seen.
Well, that's there for you to reference.
There's a lot of them.
To it.
Go look at that list on Collider.com.
And I certainly didn't even hit everything. Speaking of Timo, like his other Netflix movie of the year wasn't on that list.
Oh, and, what's that one called again?
May the Devil Take You?
Yeah. I need to see that too.
It's fun. It's sort of like what probably what drew the Sam Raimi connection in my head. It's very Evil Dead-ish.
So there's your list, and also Matt Donato. So Matt Donato is a buddy of both of ours who writes a lot about genre, and I don't think anybody watches more horror content than he does.
He'll have seen 50 more horror movies than me this
These
year.
like itty bitty things that I didn't even get a press release about.
Totally.
He sees, and there's certain ones on his list in particular that literally no one's talking about that I want to watch because he says that they're great, but
we'll see, Donato.
I know. Late Phases was a howling good time. I hope he listens to this episode now. Go look at the poster. That's his full quote, and it makes me kind of happy.
I love it.
Moving on to number 4 now.
Yes.
My number 4 is, I guess, kind of a late-ish entry this year, and another one that I found to be quite the pleasant surprise, and it's Overlord. Mm-hmm. So when Overlord was coming out, this was yet another one. The theme of this list is that I missed it, and then I caught it later on, but I was really bummed that I had missed the press screening of it because I thought the trailers looked so good, and then it wasn't until the movie came out, and I was out with my family, and they all went to see Beautiful Boy, and I walked out of Beautiful Boy, and I bought a ticket to Overlord, and then went to go see that.
Very good.
And it was a really great decision. I love Beautiful Boy, but I've already seen it. And Overlord just kicks ass. From the very first sequence. Talk about maximizing your budget. Go look at the opening sequence of Overlord, and that's how you do a lot with a little. I don't know how big the budget was on that movie either, but they definitely didn't have, $100 million, and all of a sudden they're having a big shootout in the air, and it plays exceptionally well. And then when you stick with that movie as it goes along, talk about twists and turns and developments and outlandish developments, but ones that don't feel unjustified. Everything they just paved the way to that entire world-building type thing so well there, and it sunk its teeth in, and it had me from start to finish, and it might have some of the best gore and makeup effects I've seen all year.
Yeah. So that's another one I saw at Fantastic Fest. If we were doing a top 10, it would absolutely be on my list. I love Overlord. And that was another one where the crowd was exactly right for it.
Yeah,
that was a
I had
fun
a
one to see
feeling.
with that crowd. So Box Office Mojo has it at 38 million, which makes me really
All right.
excited. No, that's so exciting to me because I remember writing this piece like,
That's actually a little more than I would have thought.
yeah, but that's what's cool. So I wrote this piece that was, I don't know, it was maybe 5 years ago where I was like lamenting the loss of the mid-budget action movie.
Oh,
And that's like a proper 1990s mid-budget action movie range where it's like, we're going to give you enough to get the job done and make it look really good. But if we make, unfortunately this didn't, but if we make a ton of money back off of it, we're going to have immense gains.
that's a good point.
I'm sad that this experiment didn't go as well as I would hope.
Did it not really?
No.
I remember it. What was it like? A little under 10 million opening weekend or something?
Yeah, it took in 21 domestic and 41 worldwide.
Well, maybe it's something that'll get, an extra little bump when it moves over to streaming platforms
I
or
certainly
DVD,
hope so.
Blu-ray, because this is something that, at least to me, seems like it's got, maybe saying cult classic is taking it a little too far, but that kind of fan base that would build over time also. And, we got Julius Avery out of it.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon may not be my cup of tea, but I'm just excited at this point to see whatever else he makes next.
See, he already upgraded to the bigger budget.
So-
I mean, well, he already made that first
Son of a
upgrade.
Gun?
Yeah, from
Yeah,
Son
yeah.
of a Gun to Overlord. So he's like at the next step.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does next. And another one on Overlord that I will, you know who I'm going for right now, that I'll watch in anything and everything.
Is it my fave?
Yes, it's your fave. You could say his name if you want. I think Wyatt Russell's the coolest thing in the world.
He's the best. He's adorable.
He was great. I mean, really, this whole cast was great too. This whole thing was just such a nice, wild surprise for right before Halloween too.
I don't understand how it didn't do better with the timing it
Neither
had.
do I.
But y'all messed up. Go watch Overlord when it comes out on video. It's very good. Find a friend with a really big screen TV if you don't have one.
Yeah. This is one of those movies that, I'm sure I'll eventually download it on the iPad and take it around with me. But it is one of
Yeah.
those movies that you want to watch on the biggest screen possible.
At least for the first time.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And also with a pretty intense sound system too,
Yeah.
because this is a movie that, like, it'll rock it could, if you have the right stuff, rock your seat while you're watching it.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up, Haleigh.
Next up for me.
What you got?
Where'd my list
Oh.
go? Oh, yeah.
Looks like we got our first little bit of overlap here.
Yes, our one and only.
Oh, wow. That is our only one.
Yeah. All right. Number 4 for me would be Upgrade from the lovely Leigh Whannell, which I just was tickled to death by. I love that movie. I'm so thrilled. That was one that I had missed in theaters. And
Ha! I got you on one.
yeah, well, let's go down the rest of the list.
I know, really.
No, I really don't know how that got away from me, but it just did. And boy, what a delight. And boy, do I wish I had seen that in theaters. I love the whole, what he's doing to combine science fiction with horror, because that was another one going into it. I was like, I don't think this is a horror movie. Why is everybody calling it a horror movie? This is an action sci-fi film. And then as the movie goes on, you're like, oh no, it's a horror movie.
Yep,
Cool. And I love that. And I don't want to say why it's a horror movie and totally spoil it, but I think that the ending really cements its place in the genre.
This one, I should just say it because it's the next on the list anyway. This is
that worked out
actually
perfect.
It's actually my number 3. We didn't plan it that way for that reason, but Upgrade even came close to making my top 10 of the year overall. It's just one of those really brilliant and well-executed concepts that I haven't really been able to get out of my head. And I really do think that one of the most brilliant sequences we've seen all year is what we touched on in our one of our earlier episodes, and it was the kitchen fight.
Yeah, that first.
I mean, actually, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about The Night Comes for Us. It's a fight that isn't just about a cool-looking fight, but also adds to all of the main players involved, the way that the two of them start to learn how to work with each other. And it's done with such brutality, but such charm, too, where even though the most violent things in the world are happening in that moment, all of a sudden you start to really appreciate the bromance in a way between the two of them. I just thought that was really well done, and I'm so happy for Leigh Whannell.
I am too.
Because that third Insidious movie was such a gross disappointment for me. And to see him really knock it out of the park, not to say that he was any more invested in this than he was that, but to really knock it out of the park with a movie that he was so into and working so hard on for so long. He's just one of those guys that I'll always root for. So if anything good comes his way like this, you got it, man.
Yeah, and I would never attempt to speak for him and say that he was more passionate about, but like he was with Upgrade, or STEM as it was called before, for years and years and years. He loved this movie, and it's very, very evident how much in the way it's executed, in the thought that he put into it. I love that it's sort of a retro type of movie. This feels like something my father would have loved raising me in the 90s, you know?
Oh, so true.
He would have loved this movie.
Speaking of which, I have to tell Papa Nems to go watch this.
Yeah,
that's his type of movie.
You talk about the bromance, too, and I like the common sentiment going around this year, which is that this is the superior Venom movie.
Well, there are definitely some similarities, and perhaps this speaks to my taste more than anything, but that was the reason why Venom wound up working for me. I think that movie is pretty flawed, but that relationship between Tom Hardy and the symbiote is there. I feel it, and I loved it, and I fell for it. It's definitely stronger in Upgrade, but I think it actually worked for me in both situations.
I don't hate Venom. It's fine. It's a silly little thing, and I'm happy I saw it. But I love Upgrade.
Yeah, Upgrade is really something else. I still can't believe we got it.
I know. Yeah, Blumhouse. They're always pulling these out.
I mean, Blumhouse this year, I can't even begin to imagine how much stuff they put out.
And last year, too. They're ridiculous.
It's just like more and more every single year. And there's so much more on the way, too, especially with the rise of their TV department now and everything they're working on. I mean,
they've got TV projects at like every network, every streaming outlet.
A lot. I mean, wasn't there a piece about the actual number of things it has in development or something?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Where it was like a crazy. I feel like I read something where it was a crazy number.
Blum's IMDb has always been like that, and I'm sure you know that because every time you interview him, you're like, oh my god.
Every single time I've ever interviewed him, like especially going way back to one of my first interviews with him, you basically just sit there with the IMDb page, and it's not about asking about individual projects per se. It's about, so Jason, here's the list. Just check off what's really happening or cross out what's not.
Can you fact check? Thank you.
I feel like every IMDb page in development section needs that.
Yes, but especially someone like him.
Exactly.
Him and like Lorenzo di Bonaventura always has a crazy one.
That's for sure.
These big time producers really need to fact check their shit.
Well, it's also because like that stuff lasts forever. All you need is one teeny tiny report out there. It doesn't even have to be an official report. It could be a rumor saying blah 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 is connected to this project, and all of a sudden it appears on the IMDb page as announced or attached. And then even when that rumor, let's say, is disproved, nobody goes back and recurates.
It's there
it just
for so long.
All right. Now that we clarify that for you, because you were all asking for it. Number 3? It's your number 3 now.
Okay. Well, this is hard to put at number 3 because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, sort of instantly. But Annihilation is just what? What? How do you exist? How are you a real movie? It's so cool. It's so good. Every time I watch it, I love it more. Every time I watch it, it feels more whole. It feels more cohesive, more brilliantly scripted and structured. Fuck, I love that movie.
I know you do.
I love it so much. And really, I appreciate new elements in it every single time I watch it. And I've watched it many times now.
I need to give it another watch. I liked Annihilation a lot. You know, I read the book right before, and I had a little bit of a tough time with the book.
Same.
It's, it's a very, it's very different. It's not written in like a traditional narrative type way, and it makes it a little challenging to get into. Also, similarly, I think with the book and the movie, they don't make any excuses for their characters. Their characters are who they are. And if they have unlikable qualities, they embrace them. And that's just part of this person as a human being. And I actually think that serves the movie really well.
Yes.
And, it probably serves the book well, too. But for me, I found her a little difficult to connect to.
She's very difficult. She's definitely more difficult in the book.
Yeah.
She's difficult enough in the film. But that was a big part of rewatching, and I'll be curious when you finally do, once the end of the year passes and you have some time when you go
have
back.
To see that pile.
I have one of my own.
Huge pile of DVDs that Dewey loves to knock over.
Yeah, of course. That's Jake at my house. He's such a dick. But when you do go back and rewatch it, the farther you get from the book, the more rewatches I have, the more the book has gone out of my brain completely. I barely even associate them anymore.
Yeah.
They're so different. Sort of like, I don't know if you watch it or read it, but The Magicians and the Show Magicians, at first I struggled, and now they're like completely different entities in my mind.
I've been thinking about Magicians,
So
maybe
good.
getting into it at some point, but
read the books, then watch the show.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's so good.
It's good to know that. It's
Yeah.
good to know that. I feel like my book list will need to be added to soon. Right now I'm on, sorry, I'm going to go on this path again. I started Firestarter.
Oh, cool.
That is a cool book. I've always really liked the movie, but that book has, as usual with Stephen King, so many more interesting details.
I would have to read that again. I think I read that in 8th grade. I don't remember anything about it.
It's intense. It's intense. I really feel for her in that book. But Annihilation.
Annihilation. So a few things that I just truly... The set pieces in it are so unbelievable. And like the one that everybody talks about rightfully so.
Screen Bear.
Screen Bear. Of course. What a brilliant concept. So intense. I love that my high school best friend, she texted me like the minute she got out of the theater and was like, that fucking bear, dude. Like, we don't even text that much. We text a couple times a month, but she had to tell me right away about the bear. The bear, but also Josie's last scene is so haunting and very some of the best dream logic I've ever seen on film. That feeling of where you're in a dream and you're trying to catch up and you're trying to catch up and you just can't, and by the time you get there everything's wrong.
Yeah.
It's incredibly well done. I love all of it. I love the oh my God, the scene where they find the video.
Well, that's what I was going to say next. The pool, the empty pool, right? Yeah.
yes.
That's a difficult one to watch.
Yeah.
I think Screen Bear has to be my favorite, though.
Yes, that definitely stands out. But really, I think the pool stood out most to me the second time I watched it. I was like, that is nasty.
Yeah, that's nasty. I do like when Josie bites it, though.
It's so good.
It's also in such stark contrast to so many other things we had seen. And, it reflects the fact that everybody's journey in this was so different and so tied to who they were too, which I think...
And their personal form of self-destruction.
Yeah. And that's the thing when I say connecting to a character too. I don't mean that I need to see something in a person that I like or have some sort of similarity where I could be on the same page. It's more about kind of what we were going back to before, labeling versus understanding. It's just understanding where a person comes from. Mm-hmm. It could be the complete opposite train of thought that I would have in that moment, but if I understand why they make certain decisions and why something is happening to them, that's when that instant connection happens, and that's when you become 10 times more invested than you would be otherwise.
Definitely. That is another difference between the book and the film. Like, not that, as we discussed, the book makes it hard in its own way, but the film has so little ground to make you invest in these characters anyway, and I think that's achieved by power of the actors and the sort of wonder of the world that Alex Garland drops them in.
Yeah.
And Alex Garland, for my money, what an exciting filmmaker.
Seriously.
Maybe probably one of my favorite filmmakers working today. He's responsible. A long time ago, I wrote this list of like the best R-rated sci-fi films ranked. You can read it and tell me I'm wrong. There's a lot of them. There are so many good R-rated sci-fi films.
I hate that we're trained to think that way. Check out my list and then tell me how I'm wrong.
Go read it, then you can yell at me. It's fine. I'll mute you on Twitter. I mute everyone who's mean to me at all. I'm like very intolerant of cruelty on Twitter. But that's beside the point. He, on that list, had written, produced, or directed the most amount of any filmmaker on that list.
Really?
Yeah, because he's written so many brilliant sci-fi films.
When you start to factor in all the stuff he wrote, and I guess also produced too, but I think... So a lot of the times, I have this with Karin Kusama, where you know how I felt about The Invitation, and then the more I watched it, the more it grew on me. I have a similar thing with Alex Garland with Ex Machina. I did not like the movie the first time I saw it, but I wasn't as hyped about it as everybody else. Then all of a sudden, I caught myself watching over and over and over again and getting so into every single detail. So I wouldn't be surprised if Annihilation followed a similar path.
Ex Machina was a film that I viscerally was angry at the first time I watched it.
Really?
I was just like,
Why?
that's mean. I was like, that is mean to me, to your audience, to your characters. I was like, that is messed up, and I don't like movies that end that way. And then it just stuck in my head like a great song, and it ended up becoming my #1 movie of that year.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a huge, huge turnaround.
Totally. It really stuck with me, and it made me think about really complex things, really complex ways where I was like, there's no easy answer to that. This is, I don't want to dive into much Ex Machina, but like, I had a huge turnaround on it.
That's fascinating. I love digging into like how and why that happens, though.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. All right, so that was your number 3.
Yes, ma'am.
We should probably do let's do my number 2, and then we'll figure out what to do from there.
Yeah.
My number 2, I'm actually surprised this wasn't on your list, but then I started to think about I remember you not being as high on this movie as everybody else. But my number 2 is A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that movie. I've said this before, but one of my favorite qualities in any movie, but in particular when it comes to apocalyptic type scenarios, is a movie that makes me think, what would I do in that situation?
Yeah.
And it takes a matter of seconds for A Quiet Place to have that kind of effect on me. Just the opening scene alone, just how they have to maneuver around that store in order to get everything they need. I'm busy sitting there like, can I really be quiet? Like, would I want to walk barefoot on the gravel? And thinking about all these crazy little details. So there's that element of it. Then there's also, this is what I mean when I say we don't box something into the horror genre, and it's something a little more. And I think that a really firm backbone for a lot of horror movies this year has been a family theme.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is stronger. Well, you might disagree with me, but I think that is the strongest in A Quiet Place of all movies this year.
Huh.
I'm going to let you think about that. But a quiet Place in the whole...
It's the most emotional.
Yeah, I would definitely say the most emotional, but it was something about that family of 5/4 that really gripped me, and it's just every single pairing in the family had such a unique dynamic that added to the family as a whole, and also, seeing the parents' different relationships with each of their children and understanding what the children are going through. It's like they're not just the kids in the scenario, they're full characters all on their own that are dealing with really intense things from their past, looking to the future, which is so bleak and almost hopeless, but the parents are trying to provide some sort of like fulfilling life for them. It's just this really big ball of frustration in my mind where I fell in love with this family and I want to push them all down the best possible path, but there's so much doom and gloom that they can't escape around them that it rips my heart to shreds.
Yeah, so I'm still stuck on your sentiment that this is the best use of family in a film this year. I think it depends on your definition of family, which is to say that...
That's a fair point.
I think that this is the best representation of a traditional sort of, what's the word for it? Nuclear family.
Okay.
In that sense.
That's fair.
And a healthy family.
That might differentiate what we would pick in this category.
And not that I love my family. We're very close. But I would say that I don't necessarily relate to super functional families the way I do to other ones.
My family can't relate to the A Quiet Place family because if the Nemiroff family, or at least like my immediate family, were in any type of apocalyptic scenario, I would be the only one who would survive.
Really?
We talk about this a lot, and Lonnie will admit it, so I could say this. She would be so scared that she would just like roll over and die. Like she wouldn't even try. My mother is a little hysterical, so that would be her demise. And my father is just the kind of person who's got good intentions, but he would lead us directly down the path where like the earth is about to cave in. So then there would just be me and Dewey.
Awesome. Yeah, Dewey. I don't know if Dewey's got it in him. He's a little bit of a princess.
He's a princess. I don't think so either.
That's
Don't you ever think about that?
I used to, I guess, more than I do now.
I think about it a lot because it's something that's been like drilled into my head since I was a kid, because obviously I watched a lot of genre content, but also I grew up with a severe fear of the emergency alert system.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, I feel like I've told you this before. When I was a kid, I used to fall asleep with the TV on, and I would set the TV timer, and it would shut off after I had fallen asleep. But I would be up really late, and it was something at like 1 or 2 in the morning every single night on the East Coast is when they would test the emergency alert system, and it was just that blaring noise. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah. All right. It did you from an early age, and you never recovered, like the best
No.
phobias.
And it's that's why The Purge got me so
Yeah, I
quickly
was
too,
just gonna
because
say
that
that.
siren still, even
very
when I
effective.
see the newer Purge movies, it creeps me out a little. It unsettles me.
I don't know if I'd be able to survive the quiet place world specifically, like as opposed to a zombie apocalypse or something, because I'm a very quiet person, as many people like to tell me all the time, constantly, for my whole life. But I'm a clumsy motherfucker. I would knock everything over. If there was like a tray of all metal tea settings, I'd knock that bitch over in a second.
With a quiet place. I compare it to how I play Words with Friends. So with Words with Friends, do you play Words with Friends?
Yeah, I've played.
Yeah. So like, you know, when somebody just like messes up the board to the point where like the only options for you to make a move is where it would open up, you know, like triple word or something for the other player, but there's nowhere else to go and the board is almost closed. And if you do a 2-letter word, you're just continuing to close the board, and that makes it an unexciting game. So you're just like, well, fuck it. I'll just make the big word and open it up again.
Yeah.
So like that's how I picture myself having to be quiet in a quiet place, where I would like walk around and be really good about it, but then I would just get frustrated. Like come on, I gotta say something, and then I would just
You'd be that old man in the woods.
I would lose it in a hot second.
Yeah.
and then that would be the end, because I just needed one break. Because I don't live near a waterfall. I can't go there.
Yeah, the waterfall, man, dude. So okay. Why do you, I'm not going to do this too much, but this is a big problem for me with this movie. Why would you not live by the waterfall, especially with a baby on the way? Come on, guys. Put your wife in the waterfall room for the last month. Just be reasonable.
That's a very fair point, because I feel like they would have had time on their hands to maybe build something.
Yeah, or at least make a tent. Yo, it's the end of the world. You can hang for a month in the waterfall room.
They make such a big deal about the journey to the waterfall, though.
Yeah, I'm not sold, but I'm not the type of person who likes to get hung up on plot holes or anything, but that one seemed particularly egregious to me.
Okay.
That said, I do want to say, like, I have a lot of respect for that movie, and it isn't one of my favorites. It would make my top 10. It will make my top 10 on the site whenever that publishes, and it's really well made. I have a lot of respect for the craft that he brought to it. He clearly studied Spielberg so much when he wanted to make movies, and it paid off. A lot of people try to mimic Spielberg, and they do a terrible job of it. He actually does a pretty great job. So I do like this as a creature movie, as a monster movie, as a traditional nuclear family movie. but yeah, it's just not. Doesn't quite cut the mustard for what would make my top 5, which I think if you look at our selection is that I tend to skew a little weirder.
Reflect our taste.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I skew a little weirder and darker.
Yeah. I can't wait to, you're doing like a regular top 10 too, right?
Top 10, top 15, something. It's horror. I make the rules.
Oh, but are you doing like an outside of horror? Okay.
Yeah, top 10 for that.
I'm also curious to see how our lists compare with that.
Probably pretty different.
It's like a little, I love top 10s too every year, because it's like, on the one hand, whether I'm coming up with a horror top 10 or my general top 10, I get really stressed out with not necessarily like the immediate judgment of my top 10, because my top 10 is my top 10, so screw you. But I mean, how I'm going to judge it a year, if not just a couple of months after I post it.
Oh my gosh.
That's what stresses me out more so than anything. But then on the flip side of that, I start to really appreciate how my top 10 each year is like a little time capsule into my life. Because God knows I don't have like a shoebox time capsule like 8th grade, but like that is really the best version of it for someone like me, is to look at what were my favorite movies each year and how it's changed.
It does change so quickly.
It's incredible how much it changes.
Even last year's list, like you said, a couple months, like, and it wasn't even a big deal, but I was like, oh, my 2 and 3 should have been flipped. Damn it.
Is there anything in the history of your top 10 list that you're like, what did I do that for?
I don't think I've been professionally publishing top 10s long enough to have true regret.
Okay.
Like, if it had been from when I was in high school or college,
Yeah.
yeah, there would be some doozies in there.
There'd probably be some for me. The one that sticks out to me, though, because I can't figure out why I liked it so much when it came out, even though I think it's a very good movie, but I don't understand why it was close to the top of my list, is The King's Speech.
Oh, okay.
I think
yeah.
it's a great movie, but
It's a little
how did it wind up?
snuggle film.
Yeah. I was a little surprised that wound up as close to the top of my list that year.
It's a hug movie. It's like, don't you feel better now?
Yeah.
That's not too bad, but I
That's
see
fair.
your point.
That's fair. It's also just like not. It's not in my little box that
No,
I'm
it's
normally in.
not.
It's just like when I was looking back recently, I'm like, oh, that was an interesting decision you made.
Power of a charming Colin.
Yeah, it's so true. He could be so charming. I don't know what to do right now, so I'm going to
So-
let you dictate what we do now that we move on.
I'll do mine next, and then
Okay.
we can do yours last. So I, in Perry's words, cheated, but in other realms we call it a tie for number one. And my reasoning is thus. My tie for number one is Suspiria and Hereditary. And the reason for that is that I love Suspiria more as a film. It would be my number one. If I were to say personally, like, I love it more. But as a horror film, what scared me, number one, would be Hereditary. That movie had a genuine physical effect on me. Oh, so harsh. Which Suspiria did not do. Suspiria, well, it did have a physical effect, but it was different. It like made me cry and feel spiritual and like connected to art and something greater than myself. Whereas Hereditary made me connected to like hell and you're suffering and everything's terrible and
So it's
afraid.
It's complete if you watch them both.
Yeah, you'll have a really intense experience, that's for sure, especially if you're me. But yeah, so just to take them sort of separately for a second, there's no secrets on this podcast how much I adore Suspiria.
Yeah.
That movie is very deeply linked to my soul and my taste, clearly, and everything about it, from the performances to the dancing and the costuming. Sorry, just from a rewatch, that costume she wears when they come back from the dinner and she's like taking off her.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I
Do
would
you
kill
know
to
how
wear
many
that.
times I've watched the makeup effects
it's
featurette
so
since we
good.
first talked about it? Way too many times.
It's so good.
I'm fascinated. I can't stop watching behind the scenes of the mirror room stuff.
Yeah.
I can't. I really just can't get over how you accomplish something like that.
That's a great example too, because it's the technical elements, but it's also the actress's physical work that is essential to that.
It's really nuts.
It's his direction, and you're shooting it in a room of mirrors. Like, that's not hard.
You don't really think about that.
I mean, I guess these days you can CG shit out. It's not that big of a deal. But
You
like,
can, but it's still more work.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, people never really think about, a low budget production where you can't get one angle because there's a window reflection there even.
Yeah, so definitely don't shoot things in a room of mirrors unless you have budget, guys. Pro tip. But yeah, Suspiria. I love it. I love it so much. It speaks to my heart. It makes me cry every time. The more I watch it, the more I appreciate little touches about it. I think I spoke briefly to how, like, it was my third time or something where I was like, oh my God, the movie ends or begins and ends in complete opposite artistic expressions. Like, brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And then they represent Susie Bannion's journey. Brilliant. Like, I just every time notice more about it that I totally love. And I think it's pretty close to perfect for me as far as movies go. And I know you don't really care for the older gentleman, Dr. Klemperer.
Kind of.
But I think he's essential, and I love his story, and I love her performance as him.
I found that the doctor was essential, but it's almost like it's almost too little too late, but I loved the payoff with the doctor so much that I was able to kind of look past it. That's another one, though, that I've been saying I'm going to rewatch for so long, but I still can't get The Favorite out of my DVD player, so until that happens, I can't watch Suspiria again.
So good.
But I do really appreciate this movie. This would definitely be in my top 10 if the list was a little longer. Yeah. Even though I was, I felt like a little disjointed with everything in the school that I loved so much, and then most of the things that happen outside, which didn't click to that same degree, I still appreciated the journey overall, and in particular, how much it gets in your head. It's like it's a difficult thing to explain, but sometimes you may not enjoy an experience, but it's when it sticks with you so much and it gives you so much more to think about that's when you want to kind of honor something, and also that's when you want to go back and rewatch it. It's interesting actually to think about the rewatchability of something like Suspiria versus the rewatchability of, let's say one of my favorites like Final Destination or something. Right. That's a fun, silly, campy desire to rewatch where you're just looking forward to the next wild kill. Where it's like with Suspiria, like I feel the need to torture myself. Like it's not like I was happy during the movie at all, but I'm like desperately trying to get back into that darkness. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, well, clearly, this movie has. I wasn't trying to be cute, but a hook. And it does. A really well-crafted hook that was actually made by a jeweler, like a famous jeweler. I don't remember his name right now. Yeah, but
I'm pretty sure my hook's still on my desk.
I was... Mine's in my room.
We got hooks.
I was rewatching it one of the times because we have screeners now, so like I can be really indulgent with it. And I
Isn't
noticed,
that a problem?
Oh my God.
I really understand that we need the screeners because it's part of our work, and really it wouldn't be possible to cover everything without them. But I feel spoiled when I find one that I can't stop watching.
I know.
And abusing.
It's that one in The Favorite this year, definitely for me.
I could talk about The Favorite all day. I wish it had some sort of horror. I mean, there are horrific elements to it, but not enough to talk about it on the Witching Hour. But I am obsessed with that movie.
Yeah, I noticed in the credits there's like a credit for the hook designer, which I thought was funny and cool. And yes, and he's a famous New York jeweler.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah, that's my trivia. Take that to the Schmodown. Don't. Nobody would get it right. I wouldn't even get that right. Yeah, so Suspiria. Big love from me. It does have a hook that sinks into your brain and really makes you think and think and think. Mm-hmm. I find it, for me, also has not just that intellectual hook. It has a psychological hook. It has a spiritual hook. It has an emotional hook. It has a visual hook. It has everything I want. Hereditary. Oh, boy. Kind of a different thing.
This is the family thing I was getting at before, by the way.
Yes. This is, I think, what we were both referencing in terms of, like, family can mean many things. And to some people, family's a nightmare.
Yes.
Again, not my family. I love my family. Mostly. Yeah. So this would be one that rewatching would be unpleasant. Where Suspiria was not unpleasant for me, but this, like, I have put off rewatching too much because I remember when I got the DVD in the mail and I was like, oh, sweet, bummer. I have to rewatch this now.
I get that. I have the same type of draw to them. I mean, it's a different type of unpleasantness, but these are two movies that made me uncomfortable most of the way through, but I still feel the need to rewatch them. Hereditary it almost got there for me. Mm-hmm. It's one of those movies where I think it's like a bit of a highly immersive slow burn, and I was kind of waiting for the big answer at the end, and because the answer didn't really do it for me. It almost lost me. It in no way takes away from the exceptional craft and performances here, though, because if I want to make a list of some of the directors I'm most excited about from 2018, one of them is Ari Aster. Well, I mean, wow.
You don't have to like the movie, but if you try to tell me that you're not impressed by what he did, I'm going to be like, you're crazy.
And really, Toni Collette, I can't say enough about her.
Yeah, my least favorite bad take that's making the rounds at the end of the year is Toni Collette was bad actually in Hereditary, which is just...
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, revoke your license.
Where is that going
it's
around?
on the twits.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. See, someone out there is angry about it, too. They've had it.
He just heard.
Probably. I think she's freaking phenomenal in this movie. I also think that Alex Wolff is not getting the attention he deserves for that movie. I mean, really, one of my favorite scenes of the year is, and it feels gross to call it my favorite, but it's the first beheading scene where so much of it, obviously it's about this terrible thing that just happened, but what makes it worse and what makes it sink in and never be able to leave you is his reaction and how the camera just sits on him and how you could just read on his face how he's coming to realize what just happened.
Yeah.
And I wish he was getting more recognition, especially during award season. There was one group that I'm part of where, you know, you're allowed to vote for a young actor you're excited about, and it just sucks that he was 21 because it's supposed to be actors under 21, and he is 21, and
sorry, kid, you're outdated in Hollywood.
I wanted to see him get like a little love somewhere.
He's very good. He's very good. I think that I would like to also give credit to the writing in that regard. And in the scene that you're talking about, like his performance is important. It does not work it without it, and he kills it. But also it's the writing, the fact that he won't turn around, the fact that what he does is so disgraceful and disgusting but relatable, like to just act like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Oh, that speaks to me as a procrastinator, as a person who like fucks up a lot. I'm like, oh God, what if you did just avoid something so horrible just because you couldn't face it?
Oh boy, that's a way to to tie into the problems in a really big way. Now I'm gonna think about that when I procrastinate next.
Right. That'll make it. In case you didn't feel bad enough.
I am like the extreme case of Jewish guilt. I feel guilty about everything.
I have cancer guilt. Just the star sign, not this sickness.
I was like,
is it pardon?
Is that a thing? Cancer guilt?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're very emotional people.
So are Scorpios.
Yeah, we're
I'm
both water
both,
signs.
Though. I get to be Scorpio and Sagittarius.
You know, Scorpios
I'm on the cusp.
A very exciting sign for people. People have a lot of opinions about Scorpios.
I do deep down believe I'm probably more Scorpio than Sagittarius, if I'm being honest with you all. And we all know that I can't be anything other than that.
I feel like if Hereditary was a sign, it could be a Scorpio.
Probably.
I don't know. Maybe not sensual enough. It's pretty rough.
I can kind of see that, though.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything about Suspiria or Hereditary before we hit the last one?
For Hereditary, I just want to like emphasize that it's cool if the movie doesn't work for you. That's totally fine. Don't be a dick about it. That's for all these movies.
Yeah.
But in particular, I feel like people are having a hard time not being a dick about Hereditary this year. Tone it down.
I think people are having a hard time not being a dick about anything that diverges from their own opinion. And really, if we want to do anything by, you know, recording these episodes of The Witching Hour, or really doing any video, written article, anything across the board when it comes to covering film and TV, I don't know, it's always been to me about grabbing hold of your honest opinion and being truthful about it, but also without ever putting down anybody else. Because what is entertainment if not to bring us all together and to make us, you know, feel good? And I'm not saying that, you know, a horror movie can't make you feel good. Sometimes that specific feeling is the good feeling that comes out of it. But
this thing is the release of that feeling of it being over when the credits roll.
Well, I don't like fandoms closing the doors to other people who may not be able to get in now but want to get in the future. And, you know, when it comes to loving a movie like Hereditary, you should be allowed to love it if that's what you feel.
And also, it's just like, it ties into what we were talking about earlier about genre classification. Just let a movie be what people feel that it is. Yeah. You don't have to tell them, well, no, that wasn't scary. It's not a horror movie.
Yeah, changes from perspective to perspective.
Yeah,
it's like maybe you think something weighs more heavily in horror than drama, but maybe that just speaks to your taste too. Maybe that's the kind of material that you're drawn to, so you place more value and importance in that, and that's fine. That's fine. That's why we have so many different types of media to consume right now, so many different types of people on screen, so many different types of stories being told, and we got to keep those doors open.
Well, that's what's cool about our list is, you know, as we lead into your number one, we really do have fairly different taste. And the fact that we both feel so passionately about 4 different movies since we had one crossover, like, that just goes to show you the year in horror, it's really checked a lot of different boxes for a lot of different people. And if you didn't find what you were looking for in one of these titles, you probably will in the next one.
Yeah.
If someone's top 10 list, you're like, I hate all those horror movies, someone else's is going to be great for you.
Exactly.
We are in a very good time for horror where you can pretty much turn any way on any weekend of any month and you'll find one coming out.
It's so true.
And they're all very different.
And not to give Shudder another plug, but it's like if you think you can't find anything, just go browse Shudder, even for a hot second, because the variety there is really astounding to me.
That thing still blows my mind that it's $5 a month. And, like, those are things that I had to work so hard to find in high school. Those movies were not easily accessible.
I really cannot believe how much I appreciate that service.
So give us a sponsorship because we just did it for free.
All right, we got one more to hit.
We got one.
This is
my
my personal #1 horror movie of 2018, and you will eventually find out that it's also got a place in my top 10 of the year, and it's Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Halloween was a really interesting one to walk into because you guys know we cover things like this on Collider all the time, where we're basically it feels like 75% of the coverage we're doing. That's just a random number I threw out to make my point, but is about franchises, sequels, reboots, remakes, rehashes, reimaginings, throw whatever word at it that you want. And I feel like this was the year, not even just with Halloween, but with a couple of other franchises, the year of such pleasant surprises, of showing me why we should continue things that were so hot a while ago, put a fresh spin on them, a new take on them, and then bring them to an even wider audience. And Halloween, in that respect, had me so excited. I was so nervous because we all know the story with these slasher franchises that continue and continue and get worse and worse, and they never stop. This was such a... I'm not going to say that it's flawless, but I think this was such a great way to continue the franchise and continue the franchise from both Michael and Laurie's perspective. And it just showed such style and craft and respect for the original while taking it a step forward. I thought the whole idea of the 3-generation angle just really built up that whole idea so well, and I'm so hung up on that last shot and what Michael did on that one night in the 78 film meant for so many people, how that had that kind of ripple effect, how it completely changed Laurie's life forever, and then changed her daughters and her daughter after her, and then to see them all brought together by the events of this new Halloween movie. I'll never forget sitting there at TIFF at that first screening, walking in, being so excited, and then being able to enjoy a classic slasher movie all over again with a whole bunch of people around me that added to it, and it was just such a wonderful communal experience. I watched it way too many times, and I'll tell you right now, but that first viewing it's not even just a movie that's making this list, but that viewing experience at TIFF this year is also one of my favorite movie-going memories of the year. And when you combine that and my genuine love for the movie as its own thing, that is what put it at the top of my list.
It's very interesting you talk about that experience. I feel maybe this is just my perception, could be totally different for other people, but I felt like the reception at TIFF was crazy strong. And then when it came out at Fantastic Fest, we were all like, yes, good.
Yeah.
Good. Different crowd, but like it just played differently in the room.
It's totally possible.
Yeah.
It happens. Different group of people.
Yeah. It's a surprise to me given that audience. But
yeah, no, I see that.
It definitely is a film that's very good and so beautifully shot. And my favorite thing about it has been in the last few months. Yeah, in the last few months, like, we have that back porch where I live, and I sit out there a lot at night and do writing and stuff. I always am picturing Michael Myers everywhere now. Like, I have this thing where I always picture something creepy coming up the walkway, and, like, it changes what that creepy thing would be. But more often than not, it's like a giant masked man with a knife these days, or, like, when I'm home alone, I think about that, which... I used to think about a lot when I was a kid, and slashers were very popular, but has been less and less so until seeing this year's Halloween.
See, it had an effect.
It did have an effect, absolutely. My favorite, outside of what happened to me, my actual favorite thing about the film itself is that Michael Myers is scary.
He is scary. He's really scary. The movie also had one of my favorite scenes of the entire year, and I gave that honor to the Vicky and Julian scene.
Yeah.
That to me is just, one teeny tiny scene that has everything that I love about slasher movies, like campy slasher movies. It's got the fun, sassy conversation where it's the two of them picking on each other, but you could feel that connection between the two of them, so that by the time that ends and it starts to blend into the suspense and the thrills, you care so much about them that anything that happens is going to be scary because you love them and you love their little relationship together.
Right.
And then once you get to the scary stuff, it's also one of the many scenes in the film that has so many iconic franchise visuals for Halloween, certain Michael Myers tactics that were done in a semi-fresh way, but also will never get old. I mean, it is basically... Michael Myers has his kill style, and I think that's on display big time in that particular scene.
Oh, yeah. I can't fault the kills in the movie. Of all, we've spoken before that I do have a few qualms with it, and it would make my top 10 list almost certainly. It's a tough year. There's a lot of competition.
There is a lot.
But the kill scenes are across the board fantastic and just executed with precision. They're clever, but not too clever. Really well done, all of them. And that would be my favorite sequence as well. But you can take any of those sort of 30-second set pieces of kill scenes, some even longer, like the gas station is way longer, and that's fantastic.
Gas station is great. The tracking shot is great. Steadicam shot is
That's
great.
so good. I wish that hadn't been spoiled for me at Comic-Con. I'm lucky to get to go to that and see that.
Yeah.
But I wish I could have seen it for the first time play in the film itself.
I don't even know if that mattered it was almost like, it's the rewatchability quality too. Yeah. It's like, when you've seen something and you know when it's coming up, you're like, yeah, bring it on. And I was just so excited that first screening to have everybody else around me see that for the first time.
I did not have that experience. I was like, because when I saw it at Comic-Con, I was blown away by the footage, just truly oh, it's perfect. So then when it came up in the film, I didn't get that jolt of, oh my God, I'm experiencing this perfect moment, because I had already had it before.
I could see why that would happen.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate. But that's what a champagne problems.
Yeah, really.
Okay, just kidding. We don't have champagne. We're not that fancy.
No, just Prosecco.
Only if it's at the parties.
Prosecco could be fancy too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Halloween is my number one.
Yes.
Suspiria, Hereditary are your joint number one.
In similar but different categories.
Yeah.
Suspiria favorite overall. Hereditary scared my little pants off.
Wow, this is like you said, this is a really diverse list of content right here, and it makes me really excited for this year. Makes me really excited about all the new filmmakers we discovered through these movies that are going to continue to deliver hopefully quality content next year and beyond. This was awesome. Yeah. I got all the warm and fuzzy feelings now because it's the end of the year.
The positive one's better, where we just talk about what we love. And what's better to do that is than the things you loved the most of a whole year.
And speaking of that, I think I could speak for you when I say this. Being able to start the Witching Hour this year has really been something special for the two of us. I mean, we've been friends and on the same page with all this stuff for a long time now. So to be able to do a show and get a weekly opportunity to talk about a genre that really makes a big difference in our lives, it's such an honor, and it's so greatly appreciated. So just know that if you're listening to this episode, if you've listened to any other episodes, it's not just another number, another uptick or anything like that. It really does mean a lot that you're enjoying the content, hopefully, and that you're here supporting the Witching Hour. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for being here.
I have to say, I don't do as many shows as Perri, but on the .com, I've been there for years. I've been doing this job for years, and really, you guys are possibly the kindest, most supportive, lovely, encouraging group of listeners, readers I've ever encountered, and it means so much.
There's always a lot of love flowing through the horror community, which I feel like people who are not part of the community and should be just don't expect.
No, it's true.
A little housekeeping before we sign off. Just want to let you guys know that our next air date should be Christmas Day, but because of the holiday, we are going to take that off and return with a full episode of The Witching Hour right in the new year. I believe the next one airs on the 1st of 2019.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, January 1st. So that's when you're going to get your most anticipated horror movies of 2019.
In the new year without
We're going to make sure you're prepared as early as possible. But we're not done for the year. We are going to release a little bonus episode coming up real soon when the movie Bird Box hits Netflix. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully it'll give you a little genre fix through the holidays. But again, thank you so much for listening. Haleigh, where can everyone find you on the internet?
You can find me on Collider.com, where, as it has been, it will continue to be much of the year-end horror content for the next week or two. And you can find me on Twitter at Haleigh Fouch. You can find me on Instagram at Haystack McGroovy. And you can find me eating all the Christmas pie for the next week.
Oh,
I'm so excited. I'm going on vacation.
Pie of choice?
Pie of choice, key lime, lemon meringue. I like the citrus, yo.
I wish I liked pie. I don't like fruity things in my desserts, so I'm more of like a cookie and brownie kind of person.
I feel you. I don't like cake. You know, we all have our...
No, cake.
So let's make a top
I know we're all entitled to our
desserts.
opinions, but I can't stand for that, Haleigh. Cake and pie for everyone. It's fine.
Muted.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at pnemroff, and I'll have a top 10 overall of 2018 popping up on Collider.com sometime soon. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. You have officially survived the very first year of The Witching Hour.